Great morning, everyone. What's up? What's up? What's up, party people? What's going on, everybody? I hope everybody's doing well. Happy Saturday to you. Happy Saturday. Great morning. Great morning, Marcia. Y'all do me a favor and share this out really quickly. I'm going to get us up and running on Instagram. If you guys are on Instagram at all, I would encourage you to please definitely skip over and open that app. See if you can't get your Instagram up and running because excuse me, I want to have you address for me, just be engaged that Instagram community.
Good morning, guys. Good morning.
What's
morning,
up? What's
Marsha.
up? What's
Good
up?
morning, Teresa.
So we got.
Please be sure to share this out. Hope you guys are having a good morning.
Yep. We're going to be talking about some things that's really, Sheri, a pretty heavy topic in relationships, and that is forgiveness and being able to do that. Not everybody can. We're going to help people move through what it looks like, and hopefully we can help some folks this morning. If you're on Instagram, by the way, guys, just do me a favor again. Go over to Instagram, and we are going to have you follow us there as well and engage that community, and then we will see what's going on. Great morning, Instagram. Great morning. We're trying to get our stuff straight here today.
Good morning. Good
Sheri
morning.
has got on some pretty lipstick this morning. Wow, I like that, baby. What color is that?
I don't know.
You don't even know?
I don't know.
Well, it looks purple to me, so I'm going to call it purple.
I don't think that's the name of it, but it's a beautiful color, and it's actually from Talisa's Place Collection.
Talisa's Place Collection. Nicole West, what's up? Let's go ahead and get this screen out of the way. Great morning, great morning, great morning, great
Good
morning.
Good morning.
What's up, everybody? Listen,
hey, everybody.
Just super excited.
Yeah,
it's going to kind of be weird a little bit. Let's try and get Instagram, make sure that everybody is in the shot. How about that?
That's a little better.
Is that a little bit better, Instagram?
Yes.
Okay,
Good
great.
Morning. Good morning.
Great. Edith, what's up? What's up? I've got coffee this morning, y'all. It's going to be a good day.
I helped him out this morning. Gave him a little coffee this
She
morning.
gave me a little coffee and a little help. Every now and then, we all need some help. So, babe, do me a huge favor. I know that you're trying to get us technically set up. Y'all, can y'all do me a favor? And can you let me know? You put a 1 in the chat if you struggle with forgiveness, just in general. In general, do you hold on to things? Are you that person? I'm not. I'm not that guy. It's very easy for me to move through forgiveness. Always has been. I think part of that is my temperament. But I've always been the kid that would not hold a grudge, but for so long. It's hard for me to do that. When I'm angry, and it's real, but it's generally short-lived. It's generally, if you struggle with moving through forgiveness, do me a favor, put a 1 in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat. Can you put this on that side for me, please? Thanks. Put a 1 in the chat. If you struggle with moving through forgiveness, put a 1 in the chat. It takes you a minute to let go, Teresa. Yeah. Marsha, yeah. Okay, that's awesome. I appreciate y'all being honest with me. One of the things that we're going to talk about today, babe, first of all, let's get the pleasantries out of the way. I'm a little distracted because you're not with me here. Do me a favor, guys. If you've never shared this out with anybody, can you do that for us? Can you do that for us? Welcome to Breakfast with the Brookses.
Good morning.
My name's Glenn P. Brooks Jr. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a coach. And sitting here next to me is the lovely light-skinned lady with the, I'm going to call it purple lipstick. I know it's not purple, but you didn't give me a color, so I'm going with purple.
No, the official title. Sheri Brooks Jr., author, speaker, relationship, and life balance coach. And it's great to be with you guys this morning. We wanted to first, before we get into our content today, we want to deal with the elephant in the room.
Right.
There's a lot going on in our country right now. And it's kind of ironic that we're going to be talking about forgiveness.
Yeah, because this was on the calendar the beginning of the year.
Right.
For June to be the month that we deal with forgiveness.
Right.
But this kind of ironic that the timing is what it is. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
And so we just really wanted to encourage people. First, we're praying for those in Minnesota. We're praying for the family.
Absolutely.
Of Lord Jesus.
You talking about Floyd?
Yes, we're praying for his family. Praying for the people in that community, praying for our brothers and sisters across the nation.
Yeah.
As we're dealing with yet again another horrific
George Floyd. Thank you,
George
Nikki.
Floyd.
We got so many. Listen, it's bad that you can't keep up because it's so
Right.
many, and it sucks. But
Right.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Don't get me started.
Right. Just dealing with yet another horrific tragedy that has happened, and we just want to encourage people. I know that a lot of people are angry.
Yep.
A lot of people are hurt.
Yep. Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. Your feelings are valid.
Yep.
We're frustrated as a community. We're fed up. We're
Yep.
tired.
Yep.
And we just want to encourage you that even though, the frustration is brimming, that we maintain a level head. And what I mean by that is in the midst of all of this, we have to remember that the ultimate goal is that justice is served.
Absolutely.
And that we have to be a participant of that in order
process.
for that to happen.
Yep.
And so I know, like I said, I know people are frustrated, which is why they're acting out, the looting and all of that. That is a cropping of outcropping of the frustration.
Yes.
Let alone the fact that we've been quarantined for the past 3 months.
You know what?
So
and nobody has talked about that. That's got to add to the climate, not only of the city of Minnesota, but certainly cities across the nation. People have been cooped up for 10, 12 weeks. These kind of powder keg situations jump off, and now frustrations begin to erupt uncontrollably. But what I'd like to do is definitely add to what you just said, babe, and that is I want to be a part of the process in terms of how do we get to justice? How do we get to movement? How do we get to the place where we're not here anymore? And so I think it's, really pretty amazing that we're going to be talking about something that requires you to get past your initial emotion relative to what's going on in order to move on towards something else. And that's the way forgiveness kind of works.
Right.
So
right.
in relationships.
Right. And right now, I mean, this is all fresh. And so nobody is, we got to go through our process.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has to go through their process. But in that process, let's make sure that we're doing things that are not going to disrupt or hamper
Absolutely.
them bringing justice to those that are guilty, so that we can get justice. For my brothers and sisters, make sure you vote.
Yeah.
Get out and vote. The way that we are going to can see change is going to be through us voting.
Yeah.
Through us, that are capable of stepping into those positions of authority in the government to make the changes necessary. In positions within the police forces, to be able to step up into those positions of authority to make those changes. Violence begets violence.
Yeah.
That's not going to change anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, some people are saying that kind of forced their hand for them to go ahead and arrest the one officer because of all of the disruption going on. Maybe it did, but is that going to result in justice?
Right. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that, and Sheri, I'm looking at our clock,
right,
and I want to make sure that we kind of really give some room to the conversation of how do we move through things relationally. And I think that even at the crux of what's going on around the country, we have broken relationships. Does that make sense? We have broken relationships. And I think that when we have broken relationships, it's very difficult for us to move through the process to get to healing in anything. So today on Breakfast with the Brookses, what's going on, everybody? Fabulous 70 says, amen. That's right. I know that's right. Listen, Nikkei, I appreciate that. So guys, again, we asked the question right at the top of the show today. If you're just jumping on, do us a huge favor and share this out. If you're on YouTube, just copy and paste the link, share that out wherever you can. If you're on Instagram, click the arrow at the bottom of the screen, and share this out, because we want as many people in this conversation as possible, because it affects all of us. I don't know about you, but I've been in relationships where things have jumped off, and it's been particularly challenging for me to move on and move through an offense, an issue so that I could get to healing, which ultimately is going to include forgiveness. And so today we're going to talk about forgiveness, the secret to a healthy relationship. And we're going to talk about 5 ways to get there. We're going to actually give solutions. So we asked a question at the top of the show today. Do you struggle with working through forgiveness? Yes or no? Do you struggle with moving on? Do you struggle with dealing with hurts and moving past offenses? Most people do, Sheri. Most
Right.
people do.
Right. Most people, it's hard when you've been hurt to be able to move past that. It's hard when you've been wrong to not want to stay in that place. Because number one, because you're, like I said, your feelings are valid. What you're feeling is true, but it's hard to move past it because for some reason we feel like when we don't let the other person off the hook, like we're punishing them.
Right.
Which is
Right.
really, it's like, I'm not going to forgive you. Like,
Right.
that's hurting them.
Right. And it's
But in
really
reality,
oxymoronic
right,
when you think
in
about
reality, it's not hurting them. It's actually hurting you in most cases, because unforgiveness can produce a lot of things going on within you.
it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So today I want to jump right in, and we got 5 things we're going to move. It is time for the healing. It's been time, Nikki. I agree with you 100%, sis. Relationally speaking, let me just give a little bit of a backdrop. I remember when Deidre and I got divorced 20 some years ago now, and I remember her being stuck and being really bitter behind some of the crazy things that I had done. And certainly, probably 98.9% of our demise was my fault, as far as I'm concerned. And I remember her being stuck. And I remember her not being able to move on and me being able to move on. But initially, I was super upset with myself that I had dropped the ball like that. And I could not move on and forgive me. And because of those kinds of things, I think it affected a lot of stuff that came after that. And I remember with a very clear head doing the work that said, I can't be here anymore. I don't know if you've ever been in a place where you have gone through something that has really hurt you to your core. And at some point you say, I can't do this no more. I can't, this is not productive. I cannot sit here and harbor this level of bitterness anymore because it's just not healthy.
Right, because it's paralyzing to you in a lot of ways because it stunts your growth. Somebody put in, I think Nikkei, put in, harboring, not forgiving is tiring emotionally and physically. Yes, it causes physical strain and emotional strain on the person who's not forgiving.
Right.
Because you're carrying this weight around that you're not letting go of. And in most cases, the reality is, I'm harboring this thing. I'm not letting it go. This other person is going on and living their life.
Yep. Yep.
They're out there. They're doing their thing. They're moving on. They're not thinking about the fact that they hurt me or that they, caused me harm, whatever the case was. They're not thinking about that. They're going on with their life. And so the fact that I allowed that to cause me to stay stuck instead of being productive and being able to move past it, it hurts me even longer.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. And so today I want to give you guys 5 things. If you're ready for this, put ready in the chat. Put a ready in the chat. We're going to give you 5 ways to move through this. And this was an article that I pulled up online. And I got when I was doing some research this past week, just researching, because by the way, guys, we're going to be dealing with forgiveness or this whole subject all throughout the month of June in our MAPS Relationship Academy. If you want to be a part of that, do me a favor, put a me in the chat, and we certainly would love for you to come join us. If you want to visit our website, it's www.glennpbrooksjr.com. And that's with 2 N's. Maybe somebody can put that in the chat. I don't know if it'll go through, but www.glennpbrooksjr.com. Hey, Tori, what's going on? And I want you guys to come ride with us throughout the month of June, because we're going to unpack this idea of moving through forgiveness. And we're going to particularly take it from a vantage point of what it looks like to be able to offer a healthy apology. I think that is one of the missing components in most of forgiveness journeys. Is how do people apologize? And oftentimes you will find that people have a language that they speak when it comes to apologizing. And so apologizing for me looks different than Sheri. But the problem is that if Sheri is not receiving the apology the way she needs to receive it, it's not valid. And so I literally have to learn what language of apology does she speak. And quite frankly, am I versed in that language? You get what I'm saying? So for me, I have to really take into consideration, and if I go back to my ex-wife, there was a kind of an apology she needed to hear in
Right.
order to move on if we were going to raise our son in a co-parenting situation, in a really healthy situation. And when I figured that out, we began to move through it. So we are absolutely going to move through that all throughout the month of June. Today, we're just going to kind of talk about forgiveness in general and how you begin to move through it. Nicole West says, oh yes, a healthy apology. Yeah, that looks different for everybody. And I think that unfortunately, most people never really do the work of what that looks like for you.
Right.
And because of that, you don't know how to communicate that for other people.
Right. And for some people, and Glenn touched on this, for some people, an apology is simply the person, is what they say, how they say it. Other people, it has to be, the apology has to look like something.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to talk about those things within the group this month on what the different languages of apology are, so that you'll, number one, identify what yours is. And when we say what yours is, it's the way that you need a person to apologize to you,
right,
for you to be able to move
right,
past it.
Right. And so there are 5 different ones. We're not going to get into that today. We may, well, we're not going to get into that today at all. We are going to get into that and pull that apart. Which language do you speak? There's an assessment that we're going to give everyone in that community to be able to help them identify exactly what their language of apology is. So if you're in the MAPS Relationship Academy, put hashtag MAPS Rocks in the chat. If you want to be a part of the MAPS Relationship Academy, go to www.glennpbrooksjr.com and somebody put that in the chat for us, and we are be glad to have you come ride with us. So today we got a string of readies in the chat. People are ready for this content. Number one, and we're talking about 5 things that you need in order to move through or to get to the place that where you can forgive in a relationship. And number one is think about the outcome that you want. Think about the outcome that you want. Put that in the chat. Number one is think about the outcome that you desire, that you want. Sheri, I think that unfortunately, most people lose track of their goals in the relationship.
Right.
I know I did. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not careful, the offense becomes the issue.
Right.
And that's really, really counterproductive if you're trying to move through an issue and forgiveness. It doesn't mean that the offense doesn't have a point or it doesn't have weight.
Right.
It's absolutely valid. But when it becomes the point,
right.
Oftentimes you'll lose your goals and you will not be able to move through that.
Right. And I think what happens in relationships a lot of times, so someone offends the other one, someone does something that, that's hurtful, that's harmful. We will get caught up in, and I don't want to say caught up because that's a bad word, but we will get stuck behind that offense and not being able to move past it, instead of remembering the whole goal of us being in this relationship is for us to have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
It's for us to grow old together. If that's your thing, you're married, your goal is you want to grow old together. So you want to grow old together happily.
Right.
Okay. Number one, we have to remember people are human. People make mistakes. People are going to do things. That's just human nature. And so am I willing, is this thing that to that degree that now completely negates
that's
our
good.
growing old together?
Yeah.
Or is this something, a roadblock or a stumble, a speed bump in the road that we got to get past?
Yeah.
But we can still get on to where we're trying to go.
That's good.
And so if you allow this thing to now become not a speed bump, but it becomes this a barrier in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
A wall that you guys can't get to, that you can't get down the road to where you're trying to go.
Right. One of the things that this article was talking about, it was kind of dope. I loved it. It was talking about focusing on cooperative goals as opposed to competitive goals. Does that make sense, y'all? So, in other words, you mentioned this idea of the goal for us. This was a cooperative goal. When Sheri and I got married, we realized that because we both had been married before, she was married twice before me, that we had to do things really differently if this one was going to work. Because I remember for the first probably 5 years, you and I legitimately had some suspicion as to whether or not we could last. Right. We had never done that before. It's like back in the day, Mike Tyson was known for knocking people out in the first round. The elephant in the room was, can Mike Tyson last past 4, 5, 6 rounds? Right. Because we've never seen it, right? So for us, we were like, bro, can we get past the 2-year mark? Can we get past the 3-year mark? Right. And for us, it really became important for us to establish cooperative goals. And so one of our biggest goals, and it really became the vision for our marriage, and that was we wanted to grow old together.
And we old, man.
And now we old. Bald head and gray to show for it, right?
Yeah.
So we're accomplishing that
Right,
goal,
right.
babe, because at the end of the day, regardless of the things that you and I go through, and we've gone through our share of disagreements, stuff that could have broken us up and really sent us on our separate ways. But the truth of the matter is that we had a cooperative goal that was bigger than the competitive goal of, I need to win this one.
Right. And you know what I'm hearing when you're saying that? And this is something that a lot of individuals don't take to heart when you get married. You no longer get to be selfish. And I think when I say that, if I'm thinking about what I want, what my goal is, I'm being selfish versus thinking about what our goal is. If this is all about me, me, you hurt me, why can't I get this? Me. If your focus is on you more than it is, if it's more focused on the I than the we, there's a level of selfishness that you have not grown past, and that also will hinder you from being able to forgive because you're not able to have empathy and look at the other person. And not to say that people do things that, you know, I believe everything is forgivable. I don't think there's anything that's unforgivable. But I think that sometimes people do things intentionally to hurt you. Right. But I'm talking about normal people, non-narcissistic people who just have a challenge. Something happens. They just go off the deep end for a second and they come back. But I think that when we get so caught up in it's all about me, you hurt me, and you can't move past that, it's because you're so caught up in you. Now, I'm not saying that there are some things, like I said, there are some things that people do in relationships that, you know, if somebody's abusing you, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, that's not what I'm talking about. Right. I'm talking about the fact that, you know, I went and got an Amex card and didn't tell you about it. And that's a real story.
She ain't lying. She ain't making it up.
You so focused on you, that I betrayed you, that I, you know, didn't tell you that, and you're not able to move past that. Yeah. We're not able to grow and move beyond
That's funny that you say that, because I remember when that incident happened, we probably were maybe 3 or 4 years in our marriage or so. And Sheri, because Sheri runs the finances in our house, she's better at it than me. Trust me, we would be homeless if I had the checkbook, so to speak. Nobody has a checkbook these days. But when you went out and got an Amex card and you didn't share with me what was going on and why you did that and that you were doing that, and then, you know, they want their money at the end of every month, all of their money. And I began to realize that was a challenge. And then when you came to me and you said, well, I did this thing, I remember feeling like that I was offended because you didn't come to me and we didn't talk about that prior. And it put us in a jam where now we have to fix it. Right. And that pissed me off. And because of that, for a while, I was just stuck on me. Look at, now you've put all this pressure on me to be able to help fix this problem. If you'd have said something about it before, if we had a chance. Y'all hear how the whole and because of that, I could not in the beginning of that scenario move past the I. Right. But the minute I began to realize the we, I could hear the you. Let me explain what I mean by that. When I moved past the I and I saw the we, then I could focus on the you and why were you here? What was behind the thought process? Right. What was going on? And then what I discovered, it had nothing to do with me. Right. Absolutely nothing. These were some things that you were battling, insecurities, fears. The whole nine had a lot to do with having been a single mother for all those years prior to meeting me, and you were in survival mode. Right. And I never even looked at it like that until I moved past the I. So moving towards and through to forgiveness became a process that was doable. Right. Because I was able to move or think about the outcome that I wanted. The outcome that I wanted, Jenny, was for us to be able to be in harmony. Right. I want y'all to put this in the chat. Do you want your point or do you want peace? Put that in the chat. Do you want your point or do you want peace?
Because you can be right all day long and be walking around on eggshells and y'all not talking to each other, but you right. I had the last word.
You won that battle.
I was right.
Right.
but y'all not talking to each other.
And my question is the harmony in a relationship worth that kind of thing? Let's keep moving. If you're ready for number 2, put a number 2 in the chat. Put a number 2 in the chat if you're ready. Nichelle said, can we have both? Nichelle, actually, that's very possible to have both and not either or. But it's not until you address the either or do you get to the both and. That's what we found out.
And it's
You want to unpack that a little bit?
I don't think in a relationship that you should even be looking to have your point. I think this goes back to the whole cooperative goals that you guys it's not about me being right.
Mm-hmm.
It's never about me being right. It's about us being in agreement.
You know what I just realized? In the show, I don't know if this is your perspective.
Agreement. And sometimes agreement can be us agreeing to disagree.
Absolutely.
But it's about agreement.
And that's that I think that, and I'm glad you said that, babe, because when I say both and not either or, when we say do you want your point or do you want peace, it sounds like an either or proposition. Mm-hmm. When I say both and, meaning you can have your point, meaning you can be heard.
Right. You have a voice.
You can be heard,
right.
And you can have peace.
Right. You do get to have
and
a
so
voice.
I think that oftentimes the point that people are trying to make is you're not hearing me.
Right.
I am not being heard. Somehow my voice you become deaf or dull of hearing to my concerns or my voice or my feelings or whatever the case may be. And that's what I mean when I say both and not either or.
Yeah, and I think, you should definitely have a voice in your relationship. Each party should have a voice. But in that voice, are you asserting your voice to the point that you are now negating the other person to make sure that your voice is heard over there?
Now you're going back to competition versus what did we say? We said competition versus cooperation. Right. So let's go to number 2. We got a string of number 2s just coming into the chat, so I appreciate that, guys. Number 2, in order to move through and get to forgiveness, you're going to have to be able to drop the case. Now, this is hard. You're going to have to be able to drop the matter. The Bible even talks about dropping the matter before an offense ensues or something like that. It's in Proverbs. But the point I'm making is that my ability to drop the matter isolates the conversation. In other words, it begins to now make this conversation not about the point or the issue, but about where can we go from here. Right. And that's a tough one to do.
Right. And I know that my take on it, the way that I've always handled that is I always evaluate an issue. Is this a $5 issue or is this a $5,000 issue? If it's a $5 issue, I'm dropping it. It's not that big a deal. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. Yes, we may talk about it, but I'm not going to stay stuck here. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say what I got to say. We're going to move on.
That's fine.
Hey, I don't agree with the way you did this. You want to go out and go get dinner.
Yeah. You know what?
I'm going to move on. But if it's a $5,000 issue, we need to sit down. Let's sit down and let's work through this.
Now, babe, you know what? When you say that, and I need y'all to hear this, Sheri and I have been married for 21 years in a row. We were married prior to one another. We've been married most of our adult life. And one of the things I realize that we do a lot is we're able to isolate issues and not let them bleed into the other. But then because of that, go back and deal with the issue that we isolated.
Right.
And we isolate, and I just realized it's a skill and it's a habit that we've developed, but it never is big enough to bleed into the next and then the next and then the next, and before you know it, you and I ain't talking for 3 weeks.
Right. It's like if you think about if you have children, if every time, every little thing that they do, if you made a big deal out of every little thing that they do, they spilled the milk. You knocked something over off the table. You left your underwear on the floor, but you cleaned up your room. If you point out everything and you make every little thing an issue, your child is going to be resentful of you. They're going to feel like they can't do anything right. You have to choose your battles. You have to decide what is worth me putting my energy in, what is really worth me bringing to their attention. Some things that people are, and this just goes back, people are human.
Right.
We are not perfect beings.
Right. None of us.
We all are going to make mistakes.
Often.
We're all going to have missteps.
Every day.
You did not marry a perfect being. You're not perfect.
Right.
And so if you don't want somebody pointing out every time you do something wrong, every little thing, then you have to evaluate, is this an issue that I really need to address?
So Jenny asked a question, what about the $5 issue bucket has mounted to $5,000 issues? Jenny, let me tell you something right now. That is not Jenny from the block. That is Jenny telling the truth. What happens is, Jenny, and I'm going to just address that really quickly because that really is it's a deeper conversation, one. It's another talk altogether. I promise you. But I want to talk about that because what that does is it has everything to do with being able to drop the case.
Right.
Most people cannot drop the case because the case has mounted for so long that the case is no longer about the case. It's about the totality or
you're keeping a record.
It's called keeping a record of wrongs. Right. And eventually you're gonna break the relationship that way. So to answer Jenny's question, what happens when that thing mounts up?
You're not supposed to be adding the $5 issue.
Let me answer that because they already have added up. Listen, I know it's not supposed to, but that's why she's asking. What happens? I wasn't supposed to do that. It mounted up. It's a $5,000 issue. I want you to think of, and I'm going to use her illustration. She said, if the $5 issue is a bucket, and now it has mounted up to a $5,000 issue, that means that the issue is running out of the bucket. Here's what you're going to have to be able to do. And Jenny, I'm going to promise you, you're probably going to need a coach, a counselor, a therapist, depending on the level of your situation to help you walk through this process. But that bucket, in essence, is going to have to be leaked out a little bit at a time. Because if you push that bucket over, you're going to damage a lot of things because at this particular point, now you have a flooding going on. Does that make sense? And so your emotions have gotten flooded, your situation has gotten flooded, and now this has become about the issue that really was, and my mother and them used to say when we were little, why do you want to make a mountain out of a molehill? That's the same principle. So in order to be able to deal with that elephant in the room, you're going to have to deal with it one bite at a time. How do you eat a 800-pound elephant? One bite at a time. So I want you guys to understand that once the thing has mounted up, oftentimes this is where people lose everything.
Right.
Because the entire situation has been allowed to fester and grow and now overflow.
Right. And remember, we're talking about forgiveness. So when we say drop the case, that doesn't mean that you say, okay, I'm not going to deal with this issue. I'm going to just put it in my back pocket. No, you're saying I'm going to let that go.
Yep.
I'm letting it go. I'm not holding on to it. So I'm not harboring it now. I'm not piling this stuff up. And it takes practice. It takes time to be able to learn to be able to do this. But it's possible where you're not now building up this pile of stuff that, okay, I'm not going to deal with. He did that again. I'm not going to deal with that. But you stuffing it over here in this closet.
Right, absolutely.
Because what happens then is when it comes out, now the beast comes out because now you're flooding him or her with all these things. You got this whole list. You talking about one thing and then all this other stuff just keeps coming out.
It's a situation. Marcia said that sometimes you have to put up boundaries, and Marcia, we know her personally, and she's worked through a lot of her stuff. That's the absolute truth. But then that in of itself takes practice. Nicole said, "Don't judge, Sheri." She laughing at you because you hear me. I had to come get her, Nichelle. I had to come. I was like, "Babe, come on," because here's what we know, guys. It is very easy for us to kind of give way to these things and allow them to take on really personas of their own. I want to move to number 3, and this is probably all we'll get a chance to deal with today. I'm looking at the clock. But I want y'all, if you're ready for number 3, put number 3 in the chat. So for those of you guys who are just jumping in, we're talking about forgiveness, the secret of a healthy relationship. And here's what I know. You cannot be in a relationship with people for any length of time without there being an issue by which you may have to navigate through forgiveness on. I'm sorry, it ain't happening. You're not going to be married to a person for a lifetime. You're not going to raise children from the cradle to the grave. I mean, in some cases, and never have to work through forgiveness. So you're going to have to really work through that. And that's the secret to the relationship growing healthy. But number 1, we said, think about the outcome that you want. Number 2, we said, drop the case. And if you're ready for number 3, I see a string of number 3s popping up in the chat. I want you guys to really, really pay attention, but don't listen to your critical inner voice.
But they out to get me.
But I mean, you know what they meant by...
They always always do
Every
this.
time I turn around, why you always?
Always.
And you never cater to my. Y'all hear that that critical inner voice?
Right.
Here's what I know about your inner voice. Your inner voice isn't your friend in many cases, and particularly when it comes out of the critical realm.
Right.
It's not. Go ahead. You start to say something.
Right. Some words that can be detrimental to any relationship. When you hear yourself saying always and never, always pause and ask yourself, do they really always do this?
Yeah.
Has there never been an incident ever in our relationship when they didn't do it? Or they never do this? Have they ever? Have they ever? That will help. Let those words be a position of pause for you. When you hear yourself, when you feel yourself starting to ramp up and you're hearing those thoughts of always and never, pause for a second. Because what happens is those words give birth to...
Ooh, that's good, babe.
To that critical...
That's good.
Mindset. Because now they never do anything right. They always,
do things
ignore
wrong.
Me. They always do this. And in most cases, that's not the truth. And if you can pause and look back, number one, it'll help to diffuse your feelings, because you'll be able to look at the reality, what the actual situation is, and you'll be able to isolate it. And this is this one situation that they're doing this. This is this one situation when they didn't do this. It's not always. It's not never. Like I said, in most cases, that's the case. Now, like I said, there are some cases, you got some people, like I said, you're dealing with a narcissistic person, a person that's got some issues that may be different. But in most relationships, that's not the case.
And so that's the thing I want to deal with that, guys. When we're talking about a lot of these things, guys, we're starting from the benchmark that you're in relationship with someone who is for you.
Right.
Let's stop right there for a second. A lot of times, and I'm not sure if all of y'all who are on the call today, what your personal situation. Some of you guys are in the MAPS community. I know your personal situations personally. I mean, obviously, I'm your coach, so we know what you go through. But then there are many people who are on this call who we don't work with you and we don't know your specific scenario. So when Sheri and I are talking about these kinds of things, it is a given for us that you're working with a person who is for you.
Right.
If you are in relationship with people who are not for you, if you are in relationship with people who cannot be challenged, if you're in relationship with people who frankly are unsafe, toxic, any of those things, many of these rules won't work for you until you deal with that elephant in the room. Does that make sense, guys? So I just want to make sure that we're really, really clear. Listen, here's what I know. I'm a coach. I'm not a counselor, and I'm not a therapist. A coach's job is to find out where you are and where do you want to be, and then to create a game plan and devise a strategy from you to get from one place to another, and the objective is to win.
Right.
That's the objective, meaning the goal is to realize whatever your goal was. If it was to win the championship, the goal is to get that done. That's what we do. And so I want you guys to understand that when we begin to work with people, we're trying to help position you and give you the game plan that it takes to win in that particular relationship, guys. So I need y'all to hear that. And so if you're dealing with a person that is not for you, that is toxic, that is all that kind of stuff, and you can't leave that and you're stuck, you probably need a therapist. You probably need to sit down with a counselor who can help you work through that kind of hurt and that deep-seated level of pain, because it's got you stuck. Does that make sense, guys? So I'm very clear, and quite frankly, I mean, Sheri has a degree in psychology. You know, we have a daughter who's a psychologist. And so I understand it. God knows I've spent my share of money with my therapists and my counselors. That's why I know what I do and what they do. I'm not built to do what they do. God knows I love them. They're my colleagues. But I need you guys to understand that when we're talking about these things, if you find yourself saying, but what if, but you don't know my situation, but I understand what you're saying, but that's probably a clear indication that you're still stuck and you're still hurt and you're still, in a place where it's difficult for you to even hear solution, because right now the problem is so looming. So I just wanted to make sure I get that disclaimer, because I hear the tenor or the tone of, some of the chat, and I just need y'all to really know that about it. I'm working on shutting down my negative self conversations. Jenny,
Jenny.
Proud of you, because let me say that the thing I
step.
love about that, and you got to understand, guys, is that's work.
Yes, it is work. It doesn't just happen. You don't just wake up one day and say, "I'm not going to be negative anymore."
Right.
No, it takes it takes work.
That's a whole nother work.
It's a process, and it's going to take time. And it's of those relationships. Because I wasn't in a place, I hadn't learned these things. I didn't know how to do these things.
Yeah.
Glad that I wound up with you. But
you glad what?
That I wound up with you.
She's glad, y'all. I'm the charm. Three times is a charm.
Yes, but had I known these things, had I been able to implement these things, who knows where my life would have wound up. But it's possible. It just takes time.
Yes.
It takes you intentionally trying to walk in this and trying to embrace this mindset of being able to not hold on to things, to be able to let things go, to be able to think about the outcome.
Yes.
To look at the big picture and not be so focused on the issue, not allowing that to be a deterrent, to be able to drop the case, to not be so focused on your point, and to focus on having peace in the relationship, and also learning to be able to let go of that critical inner voice that you have.
Yeah, that inner voice, again, guys, in many cases is not your friend. It's going to remind you of things that you can't do as opposed to what you can do. That critical inner voice. Edith said, one step at a time, Jenny.
Yeah.
Shout out to the MAPS Relationship Academy. I just love Edith, her journey. Again, Edith got some stories that'll make your toes curl. I promise you. And that's one of the things I love about our MAPS Relationship Academy. It's full of people who do not judge, because we all live in glass houses.
Yes.
Ain't none of us have arrived. We recognize that, but we also recognize that you don't have to have a perfect or a winless, or a season of undefeat.
Right.
In order to win the championship. Does that make sense? And so because of that, we grow together. We love each other. We support each other. We speak truth. If you tripping, we're going to tell you tripping. If you got it right and they tripping, we're going to tell you that too. And I'm just grateful and just so that for those of y'all who don't know, we have 5 different online group coaching programs that we run. One is for couples, people who are married or they're dating seriously or maybe even engaged. We have a room for parents, people who are parenting, no matter what your station in parenting looks like. We have a room specifically for singles who are desiring to become their best self, so that if and when that day comes that they get married, they are bringing a whole them to the table. We've often said that only in math do 2 halves make a whole. That's not true in relationship. And most singles, including us, don't spend enough time healing them to become as whole as possible,
so that when you
do get married, you're bringing a whole you to the table. And then we have rooms for men specifically, and then women specifically, where we do a little, it's more of it has an inspirational feel. That's where we get a chance to do some spiritual development. I'm a former pastor. If you don't hear it in our voices, we both are. We've worked in youth ministry for a number of years. We worked in young adult ministry and that sort of stuff, planted churches and things like that. So it gives us an opportunity to bring our whole self to the table so that people can grow. Guys, that's all we got for today. We're going to pick this up part 2 next week. I didn't know if we would get through all 5, but I wanted to make sure that we give it some weight. But if you're struggling in this, join us for part 2 next week. Sounds like a book. Glenn Your Best Self or Whole You. Ooh, I like that. I like that, bruh. I like that. I'm not sure if that's a bruh or I'm sorry. Dewita Ben. Put your government name in the chat on Instagram. Just made that comment, 5778. I can't quite make out all of the name, but I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
When you get old, you see me.
Right. You know you're getting old when you starting to be high.
What did they say?
What did they say? I didn't hear you. Listen, it's us, not you. Trust me. Hey, Linda. What's up? Linda Lee is the only person on the planet that refers to me by both of my names. Talking about elder coach.
Elder coach.
Right. Linda grew up with us in a church that we planted in Atlanta back in 2006, and her husband, they're amazing coaches as well, and they've done a lot of work. She's an author. in the metro Atlanta area.
And she has a new book that just
She
came
did.
out.
She does.
Yes.
That somebody wrote the forward to.
Yes, somebody.
Yes. So if y'all,
I'm so proud of you,
if you,
Linda.
Daryl, that's it, my man, Daryl. I appreciate that. So if you're in the Atlanta area, look Linda up. She
Yes,
is an
please.
amazing human being. Her and her
Yeah.
husband Antonio, we love them.
Yes.
But guys, listen, we honestly believe that in order for you to get to any place of significance, you can't do that by yourself.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we all need some help.
help.
We'll see y'all next week. If you want to join the MAPS Relationship Academy, hit us up, GlennPBrooksJr.com, and click on the assessment. There's a free discovery session.
Link or coaching.
Yeah, it's at the very bottom of that feed, I think, and sign up for a free discovery session, and we would love the opportunity to chop it up with you and see if we are a fit.
Yes.
We'll talk to you guys soon. Next week, 8 a.m. We'll be back. Breakfast with the Brookses. Y'all have a good one. We holla.
Bye, guys. Have a great Saturday.